Okay, so today we're going to talk about standard deviation, and we're going to find the mean again. So again, we're going to use Desmos to do this. So to do this, we're going to start by creating a list. So we can either use a table, and again, I usually say rename the X side. I usually just use capital L, but you can use whatever you want to. And then we put in a list. So obviously the list you would use is something from your assignment. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to put in some random numbers here just to kind of show you how this works. Okay, so, and I don't know why it's kind of just guessing numbers. It's kind of weird. But I'm just putting in some random numbers here just to kind of, again, get something rolling. This should be a pretty easy thing. It's not a complicated thing, standard deviation. But while I'm putting these in, let me explain what standard deviation is. So when we're looking at like these stats, generally we're talking about like what we're trying to find, or what we found so far are going to be like the middle numbers or averages and stuff like that. But that only gives you one picture, right? So let's say I'm talking about giving a test to students, and I want to look at how my students did. Well, if I look at their averages, so the mean, that would give me, like, say they got an average of 70% on a test. That gives me an idea, like, yeah, they mostly understand it, right? Well, what if, you know, 3/4 of the students got 100%, but a quarter of them got 0%? I mean, that'd still average out to be about 70, that'd be 75% on the test, which is a good score, right? But that is a very terrible discrepancy, right? A quarter of my students learned nothing on that unit. That is not a good thing. So the average doesn't tell you the whole picture. A lot of times we want to know how spread out the data is. Like a good average, or a good spread of data or whatever would have like most of the data clumped right around the average, right? Most students would score around the average of the test on a good, normal set of data. But sometimes it's more spread out than that, right? Standard deviation is a way of describing how much spread out that data is. Okay, basically it'll tell you kind of how far the data is from the mean or the average. The bigger the standard deviation is, the bigger the spread is away from the average. The smaller the number is, the closer, more clumped the data is around your average score. Okay, so if everybody got the same score, 70% on a test, well, the mean would be 70%, right? And the standard deviation would be 0 because there is no deviation. Nothing changed from any of the scores. Okay, so standard deviation will tell you the spread of the data. So again, just to kind of review, to find the mean of a set of data on Desmos. So I've entered in my list here, right? So to find my mean, I would just type mean. And then in parentheses, I put the name that I used for my list, and that'll give me my mean. So the mean of these numbers that I just put in, or the average of all these numbers, is 39.46. Okay, so that tells me about where all my numbers averaged out. Now, standard deviation. Let me show you something, because this is it isn't just writing standard deviation. I'm going to show you a little trick here. If you ever don't remember what a function is, or how to find it, like if you don't remember how to write in mean or something like that, if you click this little button down here in the corner, the little keyboard button that pops up all the numbers and stuff like that, you see this functions button right here? well, that'll pull up all the different commands, right? So if I don't remember, hey, mean, I just write mean, or median is median. Stats is on there as well, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily tell you that's how you get all the quartiles and stuff like that. But you could just put in quartile, but then you have to name the quartile, and it's a little bit more complicated. But if you just do stats, that gives you all of them. So the standard deviation is STDEV. So again, that kind of looks like standard deviation, so you can recognize like that's standard deviation. And then I just put in my list, and that gives me my standard deviation. That means that the numbers generally have, on average, they're about 15 numbers away from my mean, okay? So they're kind of spread out. They're not very close together, these numbers, but that kind of gives you an idea of how spread the number is, right? The closer that is to 0, the lower the spread of data. So just to kind of give you an example, let me start a new list here. And this time I'll make the numbers really, really close. Actually, let me show you the other way you can do the list. So I did the table first. If you want to do it this way, sometimes this gives you a little bit better data. So you can just put whatever letter you want to call the list and then just write in your numbers. So, and then you just use commas for all your numbers here. Okay, I'm going to be much closer together on these numbers. You'll notice I'm just kind of using the same 2 or 3 numbers here. Okay. I messed up somewhere. Okay, let's stop there. Okay, so looking at this, my mean is 2.68. And you'll notice my standard deviation this time is just 0.6. So it's about a half a number away from the mean on average, right? If you look at that, that sounds about right. I mostly just went back and forth between 2 and 3 with a couple of 4s thrown in there. So it didn't get that far away from my average, which is right around 3 there, right? So that gives you, again, the idea of what standard deviation is. And that's pretty much all you're doing today. You're just putting in the mean and the standard deviation. So if you have any questions or concerns, let us know. We want to help. You just have to ask a question or two, and we'll help you. Okay, see you out there.